Hello everybody, Dolores Keaveney here, and I'm going to read my new book, Dee the Bee, and then I will do a little workshop and show you how to paint an apple tree a very simple way and make a bee out of paper. And there it is, Dee the Bee. So join in now and we'll go ahead. Dee the Bee, and it's all about the fruit and the veg that the bee pollinates that we need and that we eat every single day. So I'll start now by reading it for you. If I were a bee, I'd pollinate and play in the fruits and herbs and veggies that we eat every day. I'd pollinate the apples, the peaches, the plums and the berries, the apples and the peaches and the berries that you find in your garden, like the blackberries, I pollinate them, and the strawberries. The limes, the lemons and the grapes, the pears, the rhubarbs and the cherries. Yes, the limes, the lemons and the grapes. We need the bee to pollinate all of those or we wouldn't have them. Very important. I'd pollinate the turnips, yes, the turnips that we eat for dinner. The pumpkins that we use at Halloween, I have to pollinate those. And the peppers, those hot lads that you eat in your curry. Chestnuts, leeks and onions. Yes, the chestnuts, those little chestnuts that you use when you want to play conkers. The bee has to fly into the chestnut tree and pollinate all the flowers or you wouldn't have any chestnuts. The radishes and cucumbers. I pollinate the Brussels sprouts. Yeah, the Brussels sprouts. They're the green little Brussels sprouts you have at Christmas time. The cabbage and the celery. The nuts on the trees like hazelnuts, almonds, all of those nuts. The spices that your mammy and daddy uses when they're making curries. The beans, the green beans that you have with your dinner. The carrots, the red carrots or orange carrots. I have to pollinate them. And the broccoli. You know the broccoli that you have every day that gives you great health. If I were out collecting food, I'd never make a sound. I'd pick up pollen on my feet and I'd spread it all around. And some people think that the bee buzzes when it buzzes into the flower, but it doesn't. It gets very quiet and it settles down and it picks up the pollen. The bumblebee doesn't do that. It bumbles around and it makes the pollen just fly around and it hops on different flowers. But the honeybee stays quiet and he spreads it all around, or she, it's a girl. When the pollen drops inside the flower, it mingles with the seed. And this is how you get a fruit. It's magical indeed. So now you see, it's down to me to pollinate all these. You won't have many fruits to eat if you haven't got the bees. Yes, it's me. My name is Dee, and I'm a little honey bee. And I just have a little diagram here that will tell you how the pollination takes place. And it says pollination, pollination, pollination. That very big word for consideration. Just look down below, look into the pages and read easy and slow. And you will get the full explanation. And the explanation is, when the bee comes up to a flower on an apple tree, and it goes in to collect pollen. That's what it's going to do, collect pollen to put in the little pollen basket on its leg. It picks the pollen up, but when it picks the pollen up, some of it sticks to its feet. Then it flies over to another flower. It lands on the flower, and some of the pollen that's on its feet drops into the center, mingles with the seed of that flower, and this is how you get the apple. And if the bee didn't fly in there, you wouldn't have very many apples. You'd have tiny little apples. You may not have any apples. So bees pollinate And 3/4 of the food that we eat in the world, they're everywhere in every country. And you can look after the bees. You can plant lots of beautiful flowers in your garden, like a delphinium, red clover, a purple coneflower, which is a rudbeckia. You can put poppies in your garden. You can put dandelions, those amazing weeds that everybody likes to pour poison on. They are the most important flower in the beginning of the season, because the bee, the dandelion, it's a herb and it holds an amazing amount of pollen. So the bee goes in and collects all the pollen for the little babies in the beehive from the dandelion. So don't tear away your dandelions, don't poison them, just leave them. There's another one called a buddleia. It's a beautiful shrub that you can sow in your garden, and the butterflies love it. Also lavender, it's fantastic. A veg, foxgloves, those beautiful long tall pink flowers that grow every spring. I always call them bee hotels, because the bee comes along and flies in, and it can stay in there drinking up the pollen and the nectar for hours. Bluebells, the lovely bluebells that you see in the woods during the springtime, plenty of pollen. And the most amazing flower of all, in my view, is the beautiful sunflower. The sunflower is packed full of pollen in the springtime. And it's a brilliant flower to sow in your garden, because it's yellow and the bees love it, and they will just get loads of food from it. And that is all I have to say about the bee. And there's just one thing about this, and it's a little, it's written on the back of the book, and it said, "What are your favourite fruits and vegetables?" You will probably find them in this book, and if you do, they depend on the hard work of the bees. So look after the bees. So I draw an apple tree, and we will draw a bee and show you, put the bee beside the apple tree. The apple tree needs the bee, the honeybee and other bees to come in to pollinate the blossoms. So first of all, you will need some acrylic paint. I use brown, green, red and white. So I start by putting some paint on my brush, like from here, and I draw the bark of the apple tree, just like that, look. Up like that. And I might put a little darker piece just there at the side for the shadow. And I would put a few little branches like this with my brush, like that, out like that. And then I get a different brush, a much thinner brush. I have a little brush here that I sometimes use. It's like it's a watercolor brush, and you can go up like that. Do out the branches. There'll be loads of branches on an apple tree. And you can even get a thinner brush, or even a pen to do the little branches. And I use this little brush. It's a little pen, look, and it makes great branches like this. Colored pencil would do, because there's loads and loads of little branches on the apple tree. Out here. And then in springtime, the first thing that appears on the apple tree are the blossoms. That's before the leaves. So I'm going to show you a really cute way of putting blossoms on the tree. I join together some buds, cotton buds, put an elastic band around, and just like that, I mix two colors together. I'll show you here now. A small bit of red and a small bit of white. More white, the more, to make pink, because that's the color of the blossoms. Another little bit of red and some white. just like that. And I think that's the colour of the blossoms. And then I dip my cotton buds into that and put them on the page. Look, we might get another bit of red. It's a little bit pale. Okay, so we dab away. Oh, look at that. Isn't that lovely? Keep dabbing, dab, dab, dab. You can dip it into the white and maybe put nice bit of white, more pink. Straighten up your buds. And then I usually add a tiny bit of red just to make the blossoms look. How does that look? So when you've that done, we might want to add some green, a little bit of green, because you would have little green leaves on the tree as well. So you dip another few and you just go. So there you have your apple tree. The next job is to draw a bee. So to draw the bee, you just draw a circle and a kind of a rugby ball shape there, and you put in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. So here we go. We'll put in 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the next thing we do is we colour in black first, black. Every second one has to be black. And try and stay inside the line. Just like that. 2, 3. We'll do 3 black ones, and then we have to do the yellow. It's very simple and easy. Just like that. Stay inside the lines, okay? Black marker. Then we get a yellow marker or a yellow, something yellow that will colour yellow, crayon or a marker. You draw the yellow head and the stripes. Very simple. Just like that. And there you have your bee. The next thing we do is we cut out the bee. So I'm going to cut the bee out now. If you need a scissors, or maybe Mammy might cut it out for you. So off you go, cutting out the bee. Right up there. Be careful not to cut off its head. Yeah, stay inside the line. Stay at the line. And this is a job, I think, for an adult, or if you're used to using a scissors, it's okay. There you go, and then round you go, and there you have your bee. Look, that's the bee. Now we need 2 little wings. So this is how you do the wings. You do 2 circles together like that. Can you see that? My pen doesn't seem to be working. Just 1 second and I'll go over it again. It's like 2 little rugby balls together. And then you cut them out. So now we're going to put the bee flying into the apple tree. So you need a bit of grit stick to stick it on. You just rub it on the back like that. Okay, and then we'll decide we'll put it just here, going to fly in to collect pollen and nectar for the beehive and for the babies. Now, there's a few things we have to do here. We get our pen again, our little black pen that works. And we put on his stinger, like that. Then we put on his little legs, his little feet. We put on his little eye. And his smiley face. It's actually not a his, it's a girl. Because all the girl bees, and then we put on its little antenna, so he'll find out where to go like this. And there you have your bee. Now we just have to put on its wings, and the 2 little wings are these little pieces of paper. You push them together like that. You get some Pritt stick and you stick it on like this. Look, in fact you only need 1 to put on. So the bee is all set now, flying into the apple tree to pollinate the blossoms, so you can have apples kissed by the sun. And how the bee does this is this. The bee flies in springtime and lands on a little apple tree, a little flower here. This one, we'll say. I'll tip it with the marker. Lands on that, collects pollen, puts it onto its little pollen basket on its leg. I'll draw a little pollen basket for you, if I can find my yellow paint. We'll just do it with this kind of greeny yellow. The bee has a little pollen basket on its leg here. Just there. And it picks up the pollen, puts it in here and carries it back to the beehive. But some of the pollen sticks to its little feet. And then it flies up to another little flower here, and the pollen that's on its feet goes into the center of this flower. And there's a seed in there of an apple. And once it drops in there, it mingles with the seed. And that's how you get an apple. It's magical indeed. I hope you enjoyed this little workshop and that you enjoyed my book. And maybe we'll have another one soon. And thank you for tuning in. And bye-bye.